The moment Anna spotted the worn photograph slipping out from the corner of Edward's leather wallet, her breath caught like a fragile thread stretched too thin. She had been wiping tables quietly in the cozy cafe, the morning sunlight casting gentle gold streaks across the room, when her eyes involuntarily drifted to the wallet left carelessly on the counter. There it was, a faded image of a woman whose face bore an uncanny resemblance to her own mother, the woman who had raised her alone, without a whisper of a past that might connect to this powerful stranger. Her heart pounded, a wild rhythm echoing the flood of questions swirling in her mind. Who was this man, sitting there so calmly, sipping his espresso as if the world belonged solely to him? And why did he carry this photo, this silent fragment of her mother's life, tucked away in a place so intimate? Anna's fingers trembled as she reached out, almost involuntarily, and gingerly lifted the picture from the wallet. The edges were frayed, the colors softened by time, yet the eyes of the woman stared back with a quiet strength that seemed to pierce through the sterile walls of the cafe. A storm of emotions surged within Anna: confusion, disbelief, a fragile hope she dared not fully grasp. She felt as if the ground beneath her was shifting, the steady path of her life suddenly cracked open, revealing shadows of a past she never knew existed. The warmth of the morning faded into a cold, sharp awareness. Her pulse quickened, her voice caught somewhere between the desperate need for answers and the fear of what she might uncover. Edward glanced up, sensing the change in the air. His eyes met hers, sharp and unreadable, carrying a weight of untold stories. For a brief second, time seemed suspended between them, two strangers bound by a secret neither had dared to voice. Anna's words hovered on the tip of her tongue, trembling and fragile. Who is she? Why do you have this photo? But the questions were swallowed by the silence that fell heavy and thick, as Edward's lips pressed into a thin line, eyes darkening with a guarded pain. The cafe's quiet buzz seemed distant now, a muted backdrop to the swirling storm of realization crashing inside Anna's chest. She felt the fragile threads of her past and present intertwine, tangled and knotted in ways she couldn't yet understand. The photograph, simple and unassuming, had become a key, unlocking a door to a world of secrets she was no longer sure she was ready to face. And yet, beneath the fear, a spark of determination flickered, pushing her forward, urging her to uncover the truth no matter the cost. The weight of Anna's question hung in the air like a fragile thread stretched too thin, yet Edward's response was nothing but a heavy, suffocating silence. His eyes, once sharp and commanding, now flickered with a shadow of something deeper, something tangled and unspoken. The moment seemed to freeze, the hum of the cafe fading into a distant murmur as the space between them thickened with an invisible barrier. Anna's heart thudded painfully against her ribs, every nerve alive with anticipation, but all she received was the cold retreat of his gaze, avoiding hers as if the truth itself were a wound too raw to reveal. Edward's jaw clenched briefly, his fingers tightening around the edge of the table, betraying a flicker of tension beneath his composed exterior. His silence was not just a refusal. It was a fortress built from years of regret, pride, and perhaps a fear that the past might unravel everything he had painstakingly constructed. Anna felt the pulse of his hesitation as if it were her own, a fragile rhythm of a man caught between worlds, one that demanded answers and one desperate to bury them. The space between them was a silent battleground, where words failed and emotions surged unspoken. Anna's eyes searched his face, desperate for any sign, any crack in the mask that might offer a glimpse of the man behind the polished suit and calculated charm. But Edward remained an enigma, his silence a storm that raged quietly, threatening to drown her hopes in a sea of unanswered questions. She wanted to reach out, to pull him from this shadowed place, but the cold distance in his eyes warned her that some wounds were guarded too fiercely. Time dragged on, each second a torment, until Edward finally rose, the weight of his unspoken truths heavy in his every movement. Without a word, he turned away, leaving Anna clutching the photograph like a lifeline to a past she was only beginning to understand. His departure was not just physical. It was a retreat into the silence that had always defined him, a silence that now seemed to stretch wider, deeper between them. Anna sat there, the photograph trembling in her hand, the cafe around her blurring into insignificance. She felt an ache, a mixture of frustration and sorrow, but beneath it all, a fierce determination took root. She would not let his silence be the end of this story. Somehow, she would break through the walls Edward had built, uncover the secrets buried in his past, and find the answers she so desperately needed. For in that silence lay a mystery, one that was hers to unravel, no matter how painful the journey might be. The photograph in Anna's trembling hands became a portal to a world she had never fully seen, a world wrapped in shadows and whispered secrets. That night, as the city lights flickered like distant stars outside her window, she sat alone, her mind unraveling the threads of a past carefully concealed. Each detail from the photograph, faded edges, the worn expressions frozen in time, called to her with a haunting urgency. It was as if the image itself held the key to a locked room inside Edward's soul, a room he had desperately tried to keep hidden from her and from himself. Driven by a mixture of pain and hope, Anna began to dig deeper. Old letters she found tucked away in an unmarked drawer, fragments of conversations half remembered, and the faded journal entries of a younger Edward started to piece together a picture more complicated than she had imagined. There was a life before the polished businessman, one filled with loss, betrayal, and dreams shattered by choices made in desperation. With every revelation, her heart ached, not just for the man she thought she knew, but for the boy he once was, lost in the storm of his own making. She discovered a story of love and heartbreak, of promises broken beneath the weight of secrets too heavy to bear. Edward's past was entwined with a woman whose name had been erased from his life, a woman who had been both a blessing and a curse, whose absence left scars he hid behind cold eyes and measured smiles. Anna felt the rawness of that pain, a silent scream buried beneath years of silence. She could almost hear the echoes of their last conversation, feel the tears that had never been shed, and see the moments where hope had flickered, only to be snuffed out by fear and regret. But the truth was more than just personal history. It was a revelation that threatened to shatter everything Edward had built. There were whispered rumors of betrayal, not just between lovers but among friends, of a trust broken by those closest to him, twisting the narrative of his life into a labyrinth of lies and deceit. Anna realized that the silence Edward carried was not just sorrow, but a shield against a world that had turned its back on him when he was most vulnerable. The more she uncovered, the more she understood the depth of his solitude. It was a fortress born from pain, yes, but also from a fierce need to protect what little remained of his shattered heart. Anna's own tears blurred the pages she held, but beneath the sorrow, a fierce determination burned brighter. She was not only uncovering Edward's past, she was rewriting the story of both their lives, challenging the ghosts that had kept them apart for so long. As dawn crept into her room, casting light on the scattered papers and photographs, Anna felt the weight of the hidden truths settle like dust on her shoulders. The past was no longer a distant shadow. It was a living, breathing force demanding reckoning. And she knew, deep within her, that the only way forward was through the painful journey of confronting what had been buried for so long, no matter the cost. The moment came quietly, almost unremarkably, as if the weight of years was finally ready to be lifted in a breath held too long. Anna found herself standing in the dim light of Edward's study, the air thick with anticipation and a fragile tension that hummed beneath the surface. Between them lay a small, worn box, its surface scratched and faded, but heavy with the significance of all it contained. Edward's hands trembled as he reached for it, eyes flickering with a mixture of fear, relief, and something tender that Anna had never seen before. The silence between them was no longer cold but charged with a fragile hope, the hope that truth might heal wounds once thought too deep to touch. Inside the box were letters, photographs, and a delicate locket, the last gift from a past Edward had tried to erase but could never forget. As Anna carefully unfolded the fragile pages, the words penned in a delicate hand whispered stories of love and loss, of promises made under the sun and broken in the rain. The letters spoke of a woman named Claire, whose smile had once lit up Edward's world and whose absence had cast a shadow over every success and every smile that came after. Each sentence was a piece of the puzzle, a key to understanding the man who had built walls so high around his heart. But it was the locket that held the deepest secret. Inside, a faded photograph of a little girl with eyes as bright as stars stared back at Anna. Her breath caught in her throat. Edward's voice, rough and low, finally broke the silence. "Her name is Lily. She's our daughter." The words fell between them like a fragile bridge spanning years of distance and silence. Edward's confession was a release. A final, fragile gift to the daughter he had never met, and to the woman he had never stopped loving. Tears spilled down Anna's cheeks, a mixture of grief and gratitude washing over her. The revelation was both devastating and beautiful, a truth that reshaped everything she thought she knew. Edward's story was not just one of loss but of a love that endured in silence, a love that had protected Lily from shadows no child deserved to face. The gift was not just the secret itself but the courage to finally share it, to trust Anna with the fragile hope of reconciliation and the chance to heal together. In that quiet room, surrounded by the ghosts of their past and the fragile promise of a future, Anna reached out and took Edward's hand. The warmth between them was a fragile thread weaving through the years of silence and pain. It was a beginning, a whispered vow that no matter the scars or the mistakes, some bonds could never be broken. The final gift was not just the secret revealed, but the possibility of redemption, of love reborn from the ashes of silence. The weight of the past lingered in the air, heavy yet somehow less suffocating than before. For the first time in years, Anna felt a flicker of something she hadn't dared to hope for: trust. The truth, raw and painful as it was, had cracked the walls that Edward had so carefully built around himself. In the quiet that followed their shared confessions, there was an unspoken understanding, a fragile thread weaving two broken souls together. Anna's heart pounded, not with fear, but with a cautious courage, a readiness to step beyond the shadows that had long defined their lives. Edward looked at her with eyes that no longer hid behind guarded silence but shimmered with vulnerability and something achingly sincere. The man before her was no longer the distant figure she had feared, but someone willing to face the ghosts of his past with open hands. And in that moment, Anna knew that the path ahead would not be easy. The scars of years apart would not vanish overnight, nor would the silence they both had lived with. But there was a promise in his gaze. A promise to try, to rebuild, to embrace the uncertain journey together. As dawn broke, spilling soft light into the room, Anna reached for Edward's hand. It was a small gesture, yet it carried the weight of 1,000 unspoken words. The touch was warm, grounding, a bridge between two worlds that had once seemed irreparably torn. The silence between them was no longer filled with questions or doubt, but with the quiet resolve to begin anew. They spoke little, for words felt inadequate in the face of what had been uncovered, but their shared presence said everything. They were willing to face whatever came, side by side. Plans for the future began to form, tentative and fragile, like the first buds of spring pushing through frozen earth. Anna thought of Lily, the little girl who embodied hope and the possibility of healing. She imagined a home filled with laughter and light, a place where past mistakes could be acknowledged but no longer define their lives. The idea of family, once a distant dream, now seemed within reach, a beacon guiding them through uncertainty. Edward's voice, steady and sincere, echoed her thoughts as he spoke of making amends, of being present, of forging bonds that time had tried to sever. There was still much to mend, much to forgive, not just between them but within themselves. Yet in this moment of quiet resolve, Anna felt the stirring of a new beginning, fragile but real. The decision to open their hearts, to let down their defenses and face the world with honesty and courage, was the first step toward healing. It was a choice born not from naivety, but from the deep knowing that some wounds, while they may never fully disappear, could become part of a story of resilience and love. As they stepped out into the morning light, the city awakening around them, Anna felt a strange peace settle in her chest. The past was still there, etched in memory, in pain, in love, but it no longer held dominion over her. Together they would write a new chapter, one filled with hope, forgiveness, and the quiet strength of two hearts willing to heal. And in that shared step forward, amid the uncertain future, lay the true gift of their reunion, the chance to begin again.